Hey,
I
made
made
this.
Hello and welcome to Right in the Childhood, the podcast here on the We Made This Podcast network about kids' telly from the 80s, 90s and noughties from two different ends of the millennial spectrum. My name's Mark, I am the Generation X side of millennial, and you are?
Fraser, and I'm on the Gen Z, or otherwise, side of the millennial generation.
So yeah, we're both kind of sort of millennials, but not really.
No. If we see anything good with millennials, like, yeah, sure, we're millennials. See anything bad, we go, no, we're Gen X or Z.
Yeah, exactly that. But what it does mean is, we've both got completely different experiences of kids' telly. So whenever I bring something to the table, you haven't seen it.
No.
And whenever you bring something to the table, I haven't seen it.
No. There are the rare occasions where we've heard of it, or we know of it as a concept, but we have never seen it and couldn't tell you, apart from the name, really.
Yeah, and the thing is, we've both kind of got a bit of a Peter Pan complex, and we both use this podcast as an excuse to watch kids' telly from our childhoods.
Of course. And it's like you say, it spans from like 80s, 90s, noughties, sometimes the 10s sneaks in sometimes as well.
You are that young.
Fuck
you.
Early 10s. And yeah, it spans all across, and like, as a listener, you will hopefully fit in one of those categories, or you'll have one of your own, but this is as wide-ranging as we could get. Unless you've got like a third person who's like a boomer or a alpha.
Yeah,
But
no alphas, bloody hell.
That would be a lot of too much. Don't think they could.
I wouldn't mind a boomer, that could be quite fun, but I think an alpha would drive me crazy. But so we take it in turns, and one of us is looking at a programme with rose-tinted glasses, and the other one is looking at it with a bit more neutrality.
Yeah, no glasses required.
No, well, I need my glasses regardless, because, old and blind, innit?
It's very true.
Anyway.
I just like wearing those funky glasses. I'm like, my generation's all about being hipsters and wearing... Have you heard about these glasses that don't have lenses in?
Yeah, I've seen them.
Yeah.
You haven't got a pair of those, have you?
I've got... So, Edith, Tom Holland's, like, Spider-Man's glasses in Tom Holland movies. Someone gave me them, and... Technically, they're sunglasses, but you can't really tell. But I've wear them out sometimes. Get compliments on them as well.
You're such a nerd.
I think it's because they know it's them. But yeah.
Well, anyway, it's my pick, and as always, you haven't heard of it.
No, I have heard of this one.
Have
I've heard of Boy Meets... Because I'm very excited... spoilers, we're doing Boy Meets World.
We are doing Boy Meets
World.
World.
Kind of diffused the bomb there. I have heard of Boy Meets World because this just missed me. Like, I think if we were richer, I would have seen this, because I've talked a lot about Disney, but my introduction to Disney was like ITV, CITV. They would show a lot of the Disney stuff, and then eventually, I think when I was a teenager, we got the Disney Channel, mainly because my dad wanted Sky, and he wanted Sky Sports, and the whole package thing was, so we tricked him. But yeah, Boy Meets World literally just missed me by a smidge. So there are people who, maybe I'd say slight, like 2 or 3 years older than me, that very fondly look at Boy Meets World, and I just about missed out on it. So this is one of yours where I'm very, very excited about it.
Didn't it last for a huge amount of time as well?
10
series or something.
I think that probably helps as well. And it's really cool as well, because there's someone in Boy Meets World who we've sort of seen already on this podcast. Will Friedle, I think his name. It's like spelt Fried, L-E, so I think it's Will Fried.
Friedle.
Yeah, like one of them. He was Ron Stoppable. He was the voice of Ron Stoppable.
Okay.
And he's in Boy Meets World, and I know this because I I wrote an article for Comic Book Resources that was like about voice actors who have been in Marvel and DC.
Yeah.
And he's one of them. He was Blue Beetle, so again, that was another sort of like childhood thing. I was like, and he also recently has been Star-Lord in Guardians of the Galaxy, like the animated shows.
Oh, right.
So
it sounds like he's moved on from live action to
so in that thing I wrote, Boy Meets World alum. And I only did that because I was like, when you do research, you check out their IMDb. I was like, so that's good. And I was like, he was Ron Stopwell's, like, this is so cool. And I'm shamelessly, no, I'm taking no shameless. I'm subscribed to a lot of Disney YouTube stuff.
Such a nerd.
Like, even if I'm not subscribed to it, it'll get suggested to me. But the girl who voices Kim Possible, she does a lot of videos on YouTube with other, like, thingies. So she came in and she introduced her. She's like, some of you may know him from Boy Meets World, so it's...
Okay, right.
I don't think he's the main character, though. And I don't know if I'll be able to recognise him by his face more from his voice. So It will be interesting.
So the format of the show is we pick something nostalgic and we don't research it. Yeah. We go off what we remember and we kind of see how close we were when we've actually done a bit of research and watched some episodes of it. Now, Boy Meets World is another one of those shows that I specifically picked so I could tell a story.
Oh, I love those.
You remember, like, the Chimera episode?
Yeah, I don't say you didn't watch this one as well.
So, I watched all of the first series of this without fail.
Yeah.
And I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I very much identified with a character that, if I remember rightly, was called Mikus.
Yeah.
He was this sweet little nerd kid who was adorable but tried a bit too hard because he was nerdy.
I can sort of see why you...
well, exactly that.
If you listen to any of other stories from Marks, that's like a... I'm getting more... This is what I love about doing this podcast. I'm getting more and more of an image of, like, young Mark. And young Mark is adorable. I just want to pat him on the head and be like, there.
Young Mark was quite naive, to be honest with you.
Not patronising. Wouldn't it be so cool if Will F... I just got to say, our mate Will, if he was this character.
It would be. Could be.
We'll find out.
Could be. Yeah, we don't know. But so I really enjoyed Boy Meets World. It was kind of almost like a spiritual sequel to The Wonder Years, which I only caught the tail end of.
Right.
The Wonder Years being a programme set in the 50s with quite lovable young people. And the main character in The Wonder Years was Fred Savage. His brother, somebody Savage, whose name I can't remember, was the main character in Boy Meets World. So it was almost like a spiritual sequel and like a coming-of-age American saccharine series set later on with the brother of the guy from The Wonder Years. So it wasn't a sequel in any way, but it was very much a spiritual sequel. And if you'd seen The Wonder Years, you might kind of go and watch Boy Meets World.
And it was a nice little... I'm sure there'll be like little nods and winks to it and stuff like that. This did get a reboot/sequel as well, didn't it? Got Girl Meets World,
which I haven't watched.
Yeah, but I've heard some good stuff about that as well, like from people. Like I say, I've talked to people who really enjoyed, because we just talked Disney sitcoms, and there's a lot of sitcoms that I watched that they were a bit too old for, and a bit they watched that I was too young for.
Right.
And they've said some good stuff about it. Some of us are just like it's like I feel like I shouldn't be hyped. I was like, mate, just even if it's a quote unquote kid show, you can still enjoy it. Like, they're making content for everyone to enjoy. You didn't have to be like there's not like a set sort of thing. It's not like you're being checked at the door going, oh, no.
And I think stuff like Boy Meets World and that kind of age group where they're aiming at, like, basically the kids that are the same age as the main protagonist, so 10 or 12. I think stuff like that, there is stuff for adults. Like, if we look at someone like King Rollo, as much as it did give me a kind of huge nostalgia rush, there's not actually anything in King Rollo for me other than nostalgia.
And if we look at like the past 3 Disney shows we've done on like my side, I mean, maybe less so Hannah Montana, but we've seen like, you know, humorous stuff in like That's So Raven and Zack and Cody, where it's been like, oh, okay, this is like, that's clearly targeted an adult joke, or like there's teenagers, like there's stuff for sort of everyone. And I think Walt Disney's whole thing was, we don't make stuff for kids, we make stuff kids can enjoy.
Well, that's the thing I was going to actually bring up, is your shows had some really good stuff in. Even Hannah Montana, there were some very powerful lessons and quite adult themes in That's So Raven and things like that. I came out of those shows, pleasantly surprised by how they tackled quite serious subjects. And it strikes me that Boy Meets World should have been doing that for me and people my age.
Yeah.
I wonder how well it does. I wonder whether it's as good as That's So Raven or Hannah Montana.
This is my... it's jumping a bit ahead, because we usually, like, the other person usually does, like, a pitch of what they think the show is.
Oh, shit, yeah, I forgot we do that.
Usually.
Do you pitch?
But my pitch, see, I think this is, like, the very beginning when Disney just started to do sitcoms. Like, they started to do teen sitcoms. So I'm not before they did gimmicks. Like, you look at That's So Raven, Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, Hannah Montana. They're all sitcoms, but they've got a gimmick. That's So Raven, it's, she can see into the future. Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, they're living in a hotel. Hannah Montana, it's the, superstar double life. I think this is just going to be like a quintessential, like, you run-of-the-mill sitcom that you expect, but it's for teenagers. So it's like, there's going to be school dramas in there, sort of similar to like Saved by the Bell. I will say one sitcom I saw from Disney around this time was Teen Angel, and I don't know why I saw that, but not Boy Meets World. I think Teen Angel must have been on more.
Teen Angel's
repeats.
a remake from a 70s show that I actually watched.
Yeah, but like the 90s one was even before me as well. I think it was just repeated that much. But yeah, so that had a gimmick. So I feel Lizzie McGuire was one as well, like we're going to do eventually. One day, which was just like quintessential teen sitcom. Like, you've got your main character and you're learning about the world and their friends around them. It's more school-based drama. There's no like crazy like, oh, they've got parents that are aliens or whatever.
And you're absolutely right. It was that. It was essentially a sitcom about a modern family at the time. So obviously it's set in the 90s because it was the 90s. And focuses on the boy rather than the parents, like
Let's
a lot of...
hear it for the boy.
Well, quite. That was lovely.
What a song.
Please continue to sing.
Oh, I forgot the rest of the lyrics. I don't know that. I'm terrible with songs. I know, like, this is why I think my brain is already TikTok. But TikTok gives you like 15 seconds usually of a song, and that's usually how much of a song I know. So if you ever have a...
You are a ridiculous
If you ever hang out with
person.
me for enough time, you'll know that I'll sing the same bit of a song over and over again.
I know.
Sing
That's why I asked you to continue, because I knew you couldn't.
Wait. Let's hear it for the boy. He's on it. No. I could Google it, couldn't I, really?
You could.
Try and sing it. But then I wouldn't even know the tune, I just know the... Let's hear it for the boy.
So,
It's very camp, that.
It is camp.
It is, innit? Because I remember I typed into YouTube once, and then my suggestions for other songs were like, It's Raining Men, and I was like, of course I played them.
I mean, yeah, of course.
For the first time
In history. Let's not.
it's gonna start raining.
And that's the only bit of that song. Yeah. Lovely.
No, sadly I know a bit more than that.
But yes, you essentially got it right. It was a
It's
family...
Raining Men.
No.
It's Raining Boys.
Oh dear, that doesn't sound so good. A family sitcom with the focus on the boy and his friends and his crush, and the one of the main characters was his neighbour, who was also his headmaster, Mr. Feeney.
Wow.
I can't remember the name of the kid, but I can remember Mr. Feeney.
Yeah.
I can remember Mikas, and I think his girlfriend was called Topanga. Can't remember his parents'
That could
names
have been
either.
very crude.
Topanga or Topanga?
He wants Topanga.
Maybe. It was Topanga or Topanga. Yeah, it was an unusual name.
That's pretty cool.
But yeah, and I remember it being lovely, and I remember identifying with the main character because he lacked confidence in a lot of things, but by the end of the episodes he learnt something, so he became more confident.
Yeah.
And it was Boy Meets World is a great title for something about a boy learning how to
His
be...
place in the world.
Yeah.
And stuff, yeah.
Going back to Mikas, he was cut after the first series. Mikas lasted one series and he was gone.
It doesn't help that your names are similar as well. Like, both beginning with M. I bet your heart was devastated.
Well,
it's
it
like they
was.
cut you out.
And do you want to know the story?
Of Balamori.
Of what?
It's another kid show. Let's not get into that. I'll start singing again.
Okay. So the story...
Balamori.
No
What's
idea.
the story? Balamori.
Right, don't call me Balamori.
No, it's a place.
When we went to America when I was a kid, we went to Los Angeles and San Francisco and a few other cool places. Yeah, I was very fortunate.
California Line.
Yeah, I was very, very fortunate that at the age of like 10 or 12, I got to go to America. And maybe it was a little bit older than that. Maybe it was 14. Because I'm trying to put it on a timeline with this.
Oh, did you see this in America then?
I saw Boy Meets World as a member of the studio audience.
What?
It's the only time I've ever been in a studio audience for a sitcom. I've been to things like Question Time and other things like that. I've actually been to see Strictly Come Dancing as well.
Oh,
yeah.
Was there anyone good on it?
John Barrowman.
That's very good.
Yeah.
Oh, was he dancing or was he a judge?
Dancing.
Weird.
Yeah, it was a Christmas special. I got to see of that.
That's a good one.
This was the first. Obviously, I was so young. It was the first time I got to be in a studio audience, and the only time I was in it for a show like this, like a sitcom being filmed on sets. And I was so excited to see Mikas live.
No.
It was series 2.
This is awful. So you had seen the show previously?
I'd seen series 1, and they were recording series 2 when I was in America.
No.
Or they might have been recording series 3, but it was a subsequent series.
When he wasn't there.
And they had an audience questions, and it was like, there was a lot of kids.
Yeah,
and there
of
was,
course.
Can I get to meet Mr. Feeney and stuff like that? And I asked, what's the future for Mikas? And the woman's face dropped.
Oh, no.
This woman doing this Q&A, she was just like, shit. And she was like, well, unfortunately, with TV shows and the way things happen and the availability of actors and the way the writers change things between series, it does mean we won't be seeing any more of Mikas.
No.
I was fucking heartbroken.
No.
I really hope I've got the character's name right,
Did
by the way.
you turn to your mum and go, we're leaving?
No, but I did feel cheated.
Yeah.
And this was supposed to be like a huge thing as part of our holiday in America, Universal Studios, etc., etc. And we picked Boy Meets World out of a few options because it was the only one we knew.
Oh, that's good.
And I was really, really excited.
It's good that you've given the options there. Like
Yeah, I couldn't tell you the other options. It was so long ago. And, yeah, I couldn't even tell you which episode it was now. I couldn't go, I was in the studio audience for that. Otherwise, I'd have probably got us to watch that episode. But I just couldn't. I couldn't tell you
for
that.
the laughs. Is that a Mark laugh?
Well, that's the thing. On one of these episodes, you will hear one episode of this program. Yeah. You will hear me and my family laughing
because they do. We'll have to binge it all and go, hey, that's a Wolverhampton laugh.
Yeah. They do record live, and they actually. All these kind of cliches that you see on telly where they like flash applause and shit like that.
Yeah,
they do.
Do that.
And again, part of this question and answer thing, the woman told us, if we reshoot things, even though you've heard the joke already, please laugh like you heard it the first time. And that was really odd as a kid that I was faking this laugh.
You had that power.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the only reason I put Boy Meets World on. I wasn't hugely fond of it. I drifted away from it after series 1. I don't even know whether it was about the character, really. It was just maybe I didn't see it was back on telly or something like that. And it was, at this point, you wouldn't have had something like Boy Meets World released on VHS.
No.
So, yeah,
That's devastating.
I basically put this show on to tell that story. So I'd like to definitely watch the pilot because you'll meet Mikas.
Yeah.
And then, if I could remember, I'd pick the episode I'd seen in a studio audience, but I can't. So I thought maybe pick something from a later series to see how the young man playing the main... Ben Savage, the guy who plays the main character, whose name I can't remember, has grown up.
Randy.
A bit like we did with Drake and Josh.
Ah, that'd be good. Randy.
So maybe a later series, 4, 5, 6, something like that. Pick a good episode.
Does he go, oh, yeah.
What? Oh, like Macho Man Randy Savage.
In between it, I think you said, don't know his name, and I think I said Randy.
Did you? Okay.
Oh, yeah. We're going to meet the world.
For fuck's sake, no. There was no...
I'm giving it an elbow drop.
There was no Randy Savage. Good. It means you'll stop doing that. No, there was no Randy Savage. But the guy who played Mr. Feeney, I remember who he's also played
Oh, here we go.
He played Kit in Knight Rider.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's cool.
The guy who played the headmaster played the car in Knight Rider.
That's probably why people like the headmaster then.
I think so.
Yeah, that's well cool.
And Knight Rider's one I'd like to do at some point. I bloody loved Knight Rider as a kid.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, so you know,
That's one of them. Like, I think there's some stuff in the 80s and 90s that's just lived on, even if you haven't seen it. I mean, I guess there's stuff in the 90s and 10s that have done that as well. Like SpongeBob, you hadn't seen it, but you knew of it. Like, I think Knight Rider's one of them. Like, I know it's like David Hasselhoff talking car. Like, be honest, as a kid, I would have loved that.
Yeah. I loved it as a kid.
Amazing.
I mean, you even, I presume you'll have at least know about the kind of setup of the A-Team as well and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
I meant like
B.A. Baracus doesn't like to fly.
Yeah, that kind of shit. Yeah, A-Team's on the list.
Yeah.
Hey Fraser, how many are on your list?
What do you mean? Oh, of shows.
Yeah,
Don't know. It's a lot.
well, I actually know how many's on both of our lists. There's still over 40 because we both.
Oh my God.
There's still over 40 shows each. How can we have watched so much telly in our childhood that means so much to us?
I know, it's mad, isn't it? I've literally, like, I'll get, like, a memory or something and then I'll literally, like, randomly message you, like, oh, this, and...
This show could go on forever.
I know.
And not in a kind of taking the piss way, just picking random shit.
Like
stuff we
genuine,
actually want to talk about.
Oh, I didn't telly's just great. And we've not even delved into, like, movies or anything like that.
We're not going to do that.
That would be millennia.
It would?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm not going anywhere. You're not going
It's
anywhere.
true, that. It's very true.
Well, we are. We're going to go to school with Boy Meets World.
Yeah, we are. Nice segue.
So, yeah, we'll see you in a little bit.
Ring the bell.
Well, for us, it's like an hour or so. For you, it's like an advert's worth.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to Right in the Childhood. We've been overwhelmed by the love and support that we've received from our listeners. If you're enjoying the show, you can buy us a coffee via our Ko-fi website. That's kofi.com/Right in the Childhood. ko-fi.com/Right in the Childhood. There's no subscriptions or anything like that, so just buy us a coffee if you fancy. We do this for the love, but it's always good to get bored a drink. P.S. Neither of us actually enjoy coffee. We'll probably spend it on vegan takeaway. Thank you. So we've just watched some Boy Meets World.
We have, and now we're a couple of boys meeting podcasts.
Yeah, well, I think the ship has sailed for me as a boy. Man.
What about boy with an I? Boy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Maybe.
Could be.
Maybe.
But, I mean, I would also argue that in the second episode we watched that it wasn't Boy Meets World either, it was Man Meets World.
There was a significant change. So we watched season 1 episode on the pilot, of course, and then we jumped to, was it season 5 episode 17?
It was.
Yeah, which was the highest rated on IMDb because we're like, oh, what do we want to watch?
We thought about watching the first and last, but you convinced me because this one was based on horror films, and I like horror films.
I went on a screen rant, like top 10 according to IMDb. And the last one, it was like season 5, they looked significantly older in it. And then it said it was inspired by horror films. And I was like, if this is going to like redeem Mark's journey with Boy Meets World, you know, they got rid of your favourite character.
They did get rid of Mikas.
And, like, I feel like this was the redemption in a way. Like this, if it was going to be any redemption, would be where it came. And also we might get a giggle out of me with horror stuff.
Yeah. Well, the first episode was clearly a pilot that they then subsequently added the characters that I remembered so vividly.
Yeah.
So Topanga and Mikas weren't actually in the pilot.
We had to watch the first couple. We had to watch the cold open of the second episode.
We did. But we did see Mikas, and he was as geeky and as sweet and cute. And I think I probably had a crush on him.
Do you reckon? I love that he wasn't bullied. Like you know, the whole thing of, like, they kept squirting him with a gun, like, water gun, and then he came up with the biggest water gun of all. I was like that he stood up to himself and he wasn't, like, just a joke.
I think now that I've watched it, I think the fact that the geeky kid outwitted the cool kids is probably why I liked Mika so much, because I think that was something that continued later on in that series.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
And, yeah, I really liked Mika, because he was very sweet, and I was obviously an 11-year-old watching 11-year-olds at that point, so I think I probably had a bit of a crush on Mika's.
Oh.
I might look up the actor and see if he's hot.
Because
he'll be my age. We looked that up as well,
nice,
and the characters are played by kids they're around the right age.
All very good kid actors as well. And I'd say for the first episode, like these 11-year-olds, the younger sister as well, Will Friedle, Ron Stoppable, plays the older brother. He looks so much older than him in the first episode, but then by the time we get to season 5, it looks like there's only like a year or two difference, which is just the power of PB.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. But, yeah, like even his younger sister was great. Like, they cast really good kid actors, and, you know, that's Disney are known for. They know who can carry a show, and they, you know, it's a big responsibility at that age as well. But it is interesting that they were your age, because a lot of the sitcoms I've watched, they were slightly older than me, I think.
Have you heard of something called One Tree Hill?
Oh, yeah. Oh, was he in that?
He played Marvin McFadden, Mouth, in One Tree Hill.
One Tree Hill's like proper like drama-y sort of like...
The kid who played Mikas, and he's quite hot, actually.
I think you'd like One Tree Hill. Well, no, you're either going to love or hate it. It's very like guilty pleasure stuff.
So there you go. You get a lot of child actors that don't really do much work after. And I looked up the kid who played Sean, who is Corey, the main character's best mate, and he played the same character in Girl Meets World.
Yeah, and that's right.
And it doesn't seem like he's done much else.
Yeah, so Girl Meets World, Corey becomes a teacher, doesn't he? And it's pretty cool that they, like, because you said, like, this was sort of a subsequential sequel, that, like, the sequel did elements in. And it's nice to see that Corey's story sort of came, like, because it was clear that the teacher played a big part of his childhood, especially in that first episode when he's teaching him about love. And it's the second episode, it was a parody on horror, so there wasn't really, like, too much of, like, those kind of elements, but there was a nice story in there with, like, a kid taking responsibility for, like, a relationship breaking up. It was almost like, we've seen these stories before told, but it was an interesting way to do it, where, like, a kid will blame their parents' breakup on there. But this he was blaming his friend's breakup on him, and it was, I mean, don't get too involved in your mates' relationships. That does feel a bit weird, but I like that they did that sort of...
But it's also okay to be sad
story.
when people that you care about break up. But we'll come back to, I think we should come back to that and talk about the first episode. He was 11 and he was very, very sweet. And holy crap, the theme tune was very, very 90s.
It was very, it was just a sound as well. It was very basic, but it got in my head. I was like, oh, I'm kind of digging it.
Very, very 90s. It was kind of plinky plonky and...
noise.
Yeah.
No words. We get the words later on, which proper threw me. And I was like, whoa.
And the fashion, those baggy tops, man.
They look so comfy. I'm not going to lie. He had this, like, baggy top and sleeveless hoodie, and I was like, I would rock that now. That looks
I could see you enjoying those garments.
So comfy. I was like, forget the jeans. The jeans were baggy as well. I was like, if I'm ever going to wear a jean, it might be a baggy jean. But
I could see you enjoying that fashion. I could see you, rocking those garments.
Yeah.
You're kind of a bit 90s in your attitudes in a lot of ways, you know.
Like comfort.
For someone who didn't have much of the 90s in their life, you are quite 90s.
It's made a big impression, as he says, wearing a tie-dye top right there.
Yeah, you are wearing tie-dye. But there was other stuff like a tape deck and like a personal stereo. Yeah. The light gun from the NES.
Marked out,
I'd marked out for that. His mum pretended that she was a robber and used the light gun. And a cordless phone, Fraser.
Yeah. His mum was... there was an adorable relationship between the whole family. Like, we don't see the family as much in the second one, but that family dynamic in the first episode is such a crucial part, but it's also... They even mentioned it on... they mentioned, like, Happy Days on the show, and it's like, there was that sort of Happy Days vibes, like... The whole family got on. There was a core thing. They were all together. There was none. Yeah, there was none of this like why I order or like. Yeah, it was just lovely.
I think over the
Wholesome.
2 episodes, we saw that this had a larger cast of regular characters than I
Yeah.
remembered. So on the theme tune, it was the regular cast were Corey and Sean and Mr. Feeney. But I think the others, the family, the sister, the friends, dipped in and out.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
And that sort of goes to show, like, when you're growing up, that is the case, and sometimes you have big moments with your family, sometimes you have important moments with your
Yeah.
friends, sometimes you have important moments with your teacher, and it just, again, it emphasised the importance of Mr. Feeney on his life, like, he was always there for him, and sort of, like, that role model, in a way.
Mr. Feeney strikes me as a very strong mentor as a
Yeah.
character, and I think you
I
do
do-
get
yeah.
folk that you're, as a young boy, an adult that you really kind of get a lot from that isn't your family. And I
think-
liked that role.
I think it's one of them as well that sometimes the headmaster sort of like you get an adult who's very similar to you when they were a kid. Like we've seen
Yeah.
it in Recess with TJ and Principal Prickly. Like that whole sort of relationship of they see their younger selves in them and like
Yeah.
they see something the kid sees something they could aspire to be.
I
And
think
it's
that's
really
very
nice.
much the case with Mr. Feeney
I'm
as well.
glad he was that kind of principal as well because we've seen principals in other Disney sitcoms that were like, obviously it's the joke that they're this cruel and mean person, and there was a bit of that there where I was like, oh no, Mr. Feeney's really cruel, but when at his centre, it was all facade and he was actually quite.
He was very sassy, and I enjoyed his
enjoyed
sass.
the sass.
And I think in a lot of ways he treats Corey the way I treat young people.
Yeah.
With a very dry sense of humour, but also I'm not going to disrespect you, I'm not going to treat you like a child,
Yeah.
but you probably should take my advice
Yeah,
because I've
yeah.
gone through all this shit.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think I really,
It's
really...
a mentor more than like a dictator-like leader.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
really, really identified with Mr. Feeney now.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously I identified with the kid as a kid. But now Mr. Feeney, I think he's a really warm, likeable, slightly flawed character.
Yeah.
And I love how they explored his loneliness as well.
Yeah, in the first, that was very, that broke my heart. Especially because he was, the whole class he was teaching was on Romeo and Juliet, and the whole, like, motif of the episode was love. And you're just like, but, you know, he gets his date, so.
He does. But,
Mr. Feeney.
I really liked Mr. Feeney, and I did, like you said, I just feel like it was a nice, warm, aware show. Like, another example of something that I really, really liked was how perceptive the script writing was when it comes to kids when they're breaking the rules in front of an adult.
Yeah.
They want the adult to respond and get angry and shout at them for them breaking the rules.
Yeah.
And because Mr. Feeney didn't, he kind of edged his way out the classroom and then came back in.
Yeah.
Because he hadn't got the response he was expecting and maybe even wanted.
Yeah.
And that's a really perceptive script.
Quite clever.
And I've definitely behaved like that as a kid.
Yeah. And as a teacher? And as a mentor?
No, I'm not a patient man. I think I'd
no.
have probably gone, just sit down or something like that.
I've done, but yeah, it's quite fun to do the flip because you know because obviously you were that kid, you know how it works. I'm like, very clever, very sneaky. And now I get to do it. Yeah. I liked his brother in this as well. His brother's story, Ron Stoppable.
Do you think you liked his brother the most because it was the actor that played Ron Stoppable, or do you think...
No, I think
You'd have liked
in the
him
first
anyway.
episode it was. In the second episode, I liked him more. Apart from a
We'll talk about
thing
that.
we'll talk about. I liked the story in this one where it was like a whole thing of like his brother was getting an interest in girls, and like his younger brother didn't understand at the time, and he was like felt like he was ditching him. And then his mum does this beautiful thing of like telling him, was like, "Oh, you used to hang out with your dads all the time, but now you hang out with your friends." It's like people's changing priorities, and I liked that. And then he sort of then build a closer relationship with his younger sister, and I liked that. And I did sort of like, because he wasn't like the older brother where he's like the ladies man or something. Like when he got a date, I was like, oh no, are they going to do this
And then-
cringy thing? But
and
then
then
he
he
was
was
really
awkward
nice.
as
He was
fuck,
like,
yeah.
I'm really awkward, and I was like, yes, this is what we need more of. I was saying it one of the last
Yeah.
times, like Disney shows, all
Vulnerable
kinds of
people.
all kinds of shows will be like the boys always got to be creepy, but I liked boys like this who were like
Yeah,
awkward and stuff like that.
And
it's
they've
like,
got a vulnerability rather than just being the cool kid. Yeah, I think you're right.
Peter Parker in Far From Home. Amazing. So awkward, isn't it?
For me, I feel like the whole dynamic of when people move on from something but you're not ready to, you're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
Is universal, not just for kids. And like you say, they touched that with the dad, where he moved on from playing games with his dad to playing games with his mates. And you can't think about who you're going to hurt when you're making positive changes for you in your life.
Because sometimes you don't realise it as well. Like, he didn't realise it at the time. And his dad was fine with it in the end. Like, and sometimes you do have to make those changes, because otherwise it's just going to be...
And, perfect example. I hated it when you moved away, when we used to do our old podcast. And I was upset, but I was also really pleased for you because you were doing something that you really wanted to do. And at no point did I or should I have expected you to have thought about, oh, Mark enjoys the podcast that 20 people listen to.
Yeah.
I've got to stay around in Manchester because of that. Fuck no. And I think that was the message of the show.
But this podcast has more than 20 listeners.
It does.
So I should stick around.
Yeah, you should. No, that's not what I'm saying. But obviously when that happens to you, it's the end of the world for a few minutes or a few days.
Yeah.
But you don't think about it when you do it to other people at all. You don't think about how the smallest move for you might affect someone else. And that's what this episode was about. It was really well done.
I definitely, I've never been on the side where, like, I'm hurt. I think I've been on the side of, I didn't realise how much I am. Because I move about quite a lot.
You do.
So I think I've always been on the other side of it, and it has to, like, I've started to learn from watching stuff like this. I learned most of my stuff from film and TV.
Nothing wrong with that.
But also, like, talking to friends and stuff like that, realising, oh, no, wait, our friendship means, like it's not that our friendship doesn't mean the same amount or, like, isn't important to me, but I just see different opportunities, and I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, I didn't see how that would affect, but, it does, and... Yeah.
I also feel like it was surprisingly bleak at the end. Having had the disappointment of his brother picking someone else over him, changing a ritual that they liked, he engaged with a ritual with his sister that he knew he would eventually break.
Yeah.
And it's like, because it was really perceptive and really thoughtful, and he accepted that he was going to do to his sister what his brother had done to him, and that's quite clever stuff, actually. Quite deep.
They know what they're doing on these shows, man. I'm telling you, it was great. Great pilot, great introduction into the show.
And how sweet was Morgan?
So
his
cute.
sister.
So cute.
She was adorable.
I was missing her in the second episode.
Yeah.
But we did get the brother returned. He was in college. Do a nice little segue into this second episode. Your horror was here.
Well, we picked the horror episode because I love horror.
Yeah, it was distinctly inspired by two horrors.
Yeah, but they changed the theme tune.
Yeah, new theme tune.
And it felt right, because the first theme tune was very, this is a kid show, this is a kid show.
Where this was like more teenage.
Yeah,
sort of like,
it was... He'd gone from...
words in?
Yes, he'd gone from 11 to 17.
Yeah.
So
Big jump.
Is essentially a completely different show, and that was... reflected in it.
It's a cool concept as well, that you can grow up with a show. Like, I grew up with shows on Disney, like, for short numbers of ages, but the biggest growing up with someone was growing up with the Harry Potter kids.
Right.
Like, that was always huge for me. I mean, they were a bit older than me, but, like, it was still felt like, because of the breaks
Harry
of
Potter
the
kids
years.
older than you. Shit, a brick.
But because of that, each year there was a film, and it sort of was like you were growing up with them. I mean, you get that with TV shows as well, and this is one of them, which was, it was great. It must have been great for it, if you were like, and I can see why people have that fondness for it, because it is like you grew up with these characters. I mean,
I don't know why I fell out with it. It can't have just been the fact that they cut Mika, surely.
Would it have been easily accessible in the UK?
I don't know.
That might have been the issue as well, because...
maybe not.
Because, like I say, when I was watching Disney on CITV or the Disney Channel, I mean, the Disney Channel side might have been because it was too later on. But I remember seeing Teen Angel, but I don't remember seeing Boy Meets World, so maybe it was... Don't know.
So this episode, playing on the horror tropes, it really kind of reminded me of the episode that we watched of Recess, where they played on the film noir tropes.
Yeah.
Really clever, fun little self-contained episode that was quite self-aware and referential to something that clearly the writer of it really liked.
Yeah.
And as a horror fan myself, I can see that this was written by a horror fan.
Yeah. Great gags as well in it as well. The pencil one was hilarious.
Well, that's the thing. I love an innovative death in a horror film. So, you know, I don't know, someone gets skinned. That was cool. Someone gets... stuff like the Final Destination deaths, where someone gets torn into three pieces by a barbed wire fence. The pencil gag was something that was really clever.
The deaths were like sort of like teen friendly as well. Like
They were.
Like it wasn't too anything like. Obviously, I was okay with it. So.
But
So
the
it's
pencil
too
gag,
far.
for people who haven't watched it, the kid got stabbed through the head with a pencil so
Up
much
against the
so
wall.
that up against the wall it drew a pencil line as he fell down, and that was a really clever little joke.
And then Will's character went, they killed Kenny in his Ron Stoppable voice. And that was perfect. It's like South Park reference and a Ron Stoppable voice. That's a double winner for me.
Yeah, the South Park references, again, while it dates it, it also suggests to me that...
They watch South Park, which
Yeah,
would have
and-
made sense.
But also, should Disney be encouraging people to watch clearly adult programs that are in their mid-teens? Because South Park is not for kids.
Yeah, but I think it's for teen. Like at that age, I was watching South Park. I think it's sort of that thing of being. If anything, it's showing that they know their audience, they know their characters more than most shows. Because most shows will try and pretend that teenagers are kids for as long as possible, and like try and ignore those things. They talk about sex in this. Like,
Yeah, they did. They talked
talk
about
like,
virginity.
virginity and stuff like that. And it's like, if you're doing a show about 17 and 18-year-olds, they've got to be talking about what 17s and 18-year-olds
Yeah.
are. I mean, to a certain degree. Some stuff isn't hard on television that
No.
17 and 18-year-olds would
Did
say.
you spot the second South Park reference?
I don't think so, no.
When his brother arrived, he greeted them with, "Howdy ho!"
Oh, yeah.
Which is a quote of Mr. Hanky the
Mr.
Christmas
Hanky,
Pooh.
yeah.
So two South Park references in one episode.
I wonder if that's because Will Friedle is a South Park fan, because I think that could have been a thing. Or maybe the writer is, because he did both the references and he sort of got the voice for it down. And stuff like you can see why he went into voice acting after this. His voice is comedic at best. He also, because people may say, he did Batman Beyond. He was Terry McGinnis, because people might.
Oh, okay.
go
Was
at
he
me
Batman
about that.
Beyond?
Yeah, he
Cool.
was the Batman Beyond.
Ah.
Which is pretty cool. I know, if I didn't mention it, someone would have been.
Yeah.
Especially because.
Dear Right in the Childhood, did you know that you... We've had...
Actually,
no,
no, people have been nice.
people have been lovely. And the thing is, we do kind of make the idea of the show and its premise quite clear that we're not experts and
Yeah,
we just
no.
like kids' telly, and I think our concept is strong,
Good, yeah.
but it also does give us a get-out clause if we don't know shit.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true as well. I was like, if you wanted to know something, just Google.
Yeah.
Whatever. Although there are some times when I listen to a podcast and you're like, the only time you will ever know what a ghost feels like is listening to a podcast, because you're trying to say something to him and they just, when like that woman, oh, what was that thing called? And you know the answer. It's the worst thing ever. Yeah. But no, he was very...
I tend to cut out most of our stupidity. You know?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
if
good.
we forget shit,
Probably
I
for
cut
the
that
best.
out.
Don't tell people that. We have no stupidity.
No, I don't need to
We are
edit. We're
perfect.
so slick.
Oh,
I don't need
so
to edit a
slick.
word.
Of course, no.
You don't say
I
every other fucking word.
I don't ramble or go on tangents that aren't
I
relevant.
cut you less than you think I do.
Yeah.
But I do cut your ums and ers a bit.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I won't try and fix that then.
Please fix it.
If you're already on it.
Please fix it. But this played with some fun tropes of not only horror but also teen TV as well.
Yeah.
It was really clever, a nice little self-contained satire that I thought worked really well.
And it
to the
had the-
point where the deaths got more and more
Yeah.
naff as
Yeah.
it was becoming more obvious it was a dream.
And that was again, it was the whole thing of, oh, it was a dream. But there was the powerful message at the end of like his friend daydreaming about this. But like the whole thing of like, he was the killer all along. Spoiler alert.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's like the metaphor was he killed the relationship and he killed the like friendship between them, and it's like he sees the error of his ways, and it was nice again, and it was sort of like the child with the divorced parents or breakup parents, and it was the friend with the it was good that they could do this parody of an episode, but it still told a message, because sometimes sometimes you have to sacrifice one for the other, but they managed to get the best of both worlds. Don't worry, I won't break into Hannah Montana there.
Yeah, well, yeah. And it is okay.
Sorry.
And it is okay to be hurt by your friends breaking up. And it's completely
you're
understandable.
Caught in the middle. Like, you're caught in the middle, and it can be a sucky situation.
I think they probably get back together.
Yeah, I imagine it's the world, won't they? They've got to break up before they get back together.
True.
I will say, Corey, more charming as an 11-year-old than a 17 to 18-year-old.
Would agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah,
I think out of all of them, he
got very bland.
Yeah.
And like the episode definitely did pick up when his brother and his brother's friend turned up.
He was clearly the star in the pilot.
Yeah.
Whereas in this one, he was part of a group because maybe his part was reduced because he lost some charisma as he got older. I feel so bitchy.
It could also be one of them like we've said it, but you've said it before, especially with characters. Sometimes when they're in the centre, they have to be the bland one to showboat everyone
the Buffy
else.
thing, yeah.
Yeah, and it might have been a thing of like with more characters getting introduced, he had to be less charismatic, or yeah, who knows? It'd be interesting to see what he's like in Girl Meets World, like if he gets that charisma back, now that there's someone else in the centre. But who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, should we talk about that sort of nasty scene with the brother? Literally,
yeah, we've both been avoiding it.
I was loving his introduction, loving the whole episode, and then they meet this random girl, and he just straight up like kisses her. Like,
yeah,
like, are you okay with me kissing you?
No,
yeah.
He just grabs her and kisses her on the mouth with no consent. No. And what's even worse is she likes it.
Yeah,
I mean. The 90s was fucking crazy.
It could have been like, I don't know if it would have been worse if she like slaps him off or something.
It would have been much better if she'd slapped him.
Oh no, but I mean if she slapped him and he carried on or something, like, I don't know. We were presented a horrible situation. I don't want to think of more horrible situations. I don't want to think of ways to make that situation better.
It was 90s ick. It was 90s ick of the worst kind, which does taint stuff for me, and I try not to let it.
I think it was a glitch in the Matrix. It wasn't like,
and it was completely unnecessary as well. It could have been implicit that he fancied this girl, rather than kissing her without consent.
She didn't have that much. I didn't get why she got introduced towards the end. Like there was that thing of like, oh, maybe she's the murderer. But, like, she literally was on screen for, like, 5 minutes, and I didn't see...
I think, to some extent, she was supposed to be a shallow addition to the cast, who was
it would be
expendable.
Yeah, it would be interesting.
For a horror film.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see if she came back, but...
I don't think she will. I don't know. But I feel like it was a kind of a horror film satire of... They bring in new people just to get them murdered. And she didn't have much character at all. Yeah. And they didn't have time to expand her character, but she should have said "kiss me" or anything to mean that the brothers. Well, I can't remember the brother's name.
If they both look at each other. And
it wasn't. Like it was unpleasant to watch, but it
wasn't.
90s is 90s.
Yeah, it wasn't too much to take us out of the whole episode. To be fair, it wasn't like I don't know. I'm trying to think. Let's not try and think of worse situations that would have taken us out of the episode. It was a glitch in the Matrix.
But it was unfortunate because, I really enjoyed it up to that point.
Yeah, and it didn't make me dislike the brother even more. It was just a moment where I was like, that's not. I suppose
you can argue that it was a dream, and therefore that character didn't do that, etc., etc.
I wonder then if it's in this whole world, if the boy having the dream is the South Park fan. Or if the brother is the South Park fan, or whether
I think it's the writer that was a South Park fan.
I I don't know, that could have been an ad-lib, you know. I could have totally see. They literally introduced a character called Kenny just so you can say he killed Kenny.
Yeah, they did.
I reckon, no, it could have been as well like an ad-lib from like Will Friedle where he's just
Maybe.
like, I don't know.
Maybe.
It is shocking, you know, when you hear about some actors talking about stuff, how much people do ad-lib or just like, you know, they'll add an extra bit and it's like, oh, that's a pretty cool process that they do that, and it's not like, no, you must stick to the script and say exactly everything, which is nice.
Yeah. We'll never know though.
Never know.
No. So Fraser, it is top 5 time. Would you like me to remind you of what your top 5 is?
Yes, can you do it in a random order? So not 1 to 5, but not 5 to 1. But say like, so at number 3 you've got Dirt, and at number 2 you've got...
I mean, I can do.
Go on.
Why would you want me to do that?
I don't know. Just
Is it a dyslexic thing?
yeah.
Okay.
That's what we'll say.
At 3, Gummy Bears.
Yeah.
At 2, Round the Twist. At 4, Robin of Sherwood. At 1, Cyber City Oedo 808. No, I'm not doing it. So
No, come on, number 5. What was
Round the Bend.
Okay, so I'm glad that you put that in that order. I don't know why. It just felt like
Cyber City Oedo 808, Round the Twist, Gummy Bears, Robin of Sherwood, Round the Bend. That's the order.
I'll be honest, when we talked about this before watching it, and when we talked about it even in the last episode, I was like, yo, I might even put this at number 1 without even watching it. It's either 1 or 2.
Ooh.
It's what I'll do the little ooh buzz. It's just comparing it to... You know what? I'm going to step aside from the 90s ick. And I think this also helps that we watched the rest of Cyber City.
Right.
My first impression of that first episode, I was like, yes. But then when I watched all 3, it sort of dampened it a bit. And we watched 2 episodes of this, and I do have to say, this is number 1. I really enjoyed it.
Straight in at number 1.
Number
Boy
1,
meets
I
world.
mean, to the shock of probably no one. Oh, Mark shows Fraser a Disney sitcom, and
I
he goes...
feel like it's very much your kind of thing. And if you showed me, I don't know, a horror film, it would go in at number 1.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But no, I'm not totally surprised by that.
I know it's been a long time coming though that something's dinted into the top 5, isn't it?
Yeah, it has.
Which is good. I think it's been one of them. You've been doing a lot of experiments.
Yeah.
All the time, and this was like a proper boom.
This was the kind of kids' TV you would show me if this had been on when you were a kid.
And it could have, like, literally, if I was born maybe 2 or 3, 4 years later, or like if. I don't know if I got Disney at a younger age. It might have been something where I was like, oh yeah, watch that too.
Yeah, maybe.
And we do have shows where it's like that, where I think you caught the beginning and I caught the end. But we won't talk about that because that's coming in the near future.
Yeah.
Foreshadowing.
So, Fraser, what are we watching next time?
Well, you and the listeners will all know that we're sticking with Disney.
No, surely not.
No, we've done the 3 Disney sitcoms alone, and now it's Phases 2's Avengers.
Fuck's sake.
Which does mean it's Avengers Age of Ultron. Which
is surprisingly better than you think and actually underrated.
Well, we're going to learn from Age of Ultron's mistake. We're not going to hype it as much as Age of Ultron.
True.
Because I will say, it did not live up to the hype, but yes, it is underrated, which is a very rare situation for a movie.
True.
That it is, I
like taking Age of Ultron.
But this is, it's like Phase 2 Disney stuff, is a Disney crossover called That's So Sweet Life of Hannah Montana.
Fuck.
Yes.
Fuck's sake.
It's 3 episodes. Each show got an episode each.
That's So Sweet Life of
Hannah Montana.
Jesus.
And that's what we're in store for. That's the next crossover event.
Oh dear. Okay, so we'll watch that.
We will indeed.
Thank you for listening to Right in the Childhood. He's been Fraser, I've been Mark. And we'll see you in a fortnight for what? That's So
Sweet Life of Hannah Montana.
Fuck's sake.
Look, it's so smooth.
Oh, yeah.
But can you see where my amalgam titles come from? And why I love them so much.
Say goodbye, Fraser.
Goodbye, Fraser.
Right in the Childhood is a podcast brought to you by the We Made This Podcast Network. You can follow the show on Twitter at RITCpod. The show's creators and hosts are Mark Adams and Fraser Summers. Follow us on Twitter at MarkAdamsHC and at SpiderPanTweets. The show's logo was created by Carl Bryan and the theme tune composed and performed by Colin Jackson Brown. Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed being hit.
Hello everyone, this is Tony, Network Chief of We Made This. As you know, our podcast network brings together a brilliant assortment of talent who talk about all kinds of pop culture content, such as the episode you just listened to. We're not going anywhere, but we'd love to keep the lights on for even longer if you're able to support our network on Patreon. For just £2 a month, you get your name in lights and the satisfaction of knowing you're helping us produce more great audio. And for £3 a month, you'll get your name in lights, but you'll also get access to an exclusive bi-monthly podcast from the We Made This talent pool on podcasting, pop culture, and, well, you tell us. We'll take your suggestions. For less than the price of a coffee per month, you can help keep We Made This going. Just head to patreon.com/We Made This. That's patreon.com/We Made This. And get the ball rolling. Elsewhere on We Made This. The Movie Palace Podcast.
So I normally just ask people, Robert, their general thoughts on Alfred Hitchcock. Yeah, what are your thoughts and feelings about Hitchcock?
Well, it's funny because we had discussed, how this talk was going to go today, and I kept thinking, why have I been so interested in Hitchcock? Generally speaking, I'm more interested in the less technical filmmakers, and Hitchcock is such a technical filmmaker.
We dig music.
How come you always refer to Jonathan Donahue as Donahue and you always refer to PJ Harvey as Polly?
Because she's overly familiar with Polly. Right.
Yeah, that could do it.
It freaks me out as well. Like I don't call any of the singers in bands by their first name because I don't know them. I'm not like, oh, there's my mate Johannes from Cult of Luna. No. It's Johannes from Cult of Luna or Johannes Person or, oh my God, it's Johannes Person from Cult of Luna sometimes. Like, that's how I refer to him.
So you're saying that it's sit down Mr. Ulrich instead of sit down Lars?
I think it depends how much I take an artist to heart, and Polly is very, very dear to me. So.
Well, she thinks you're a prick because you don't like Ministry.
Shipwrecked and Comatose, a Red Dwarf podcast.
But you're not really quite sure what's happened there. It might put you off seeing the next one.
That does make a lot of sense, actually. Good point. All right.
Carl can always give us the information in a way we can make it understand. Me and Mark just go blah 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 blah.
I occasionally sound vaguely intelligent when I try very hard. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I occasionally
whine about gay shit. I'm multifaceted.
Okay. Anyway, moving on.
Check out all of these shows and more on the We Made This Podcast Network.